The Aeneid, the journey to a new world. Welcome back, everyone, to my channel. We're continuing our journey through the greatest mythological epics of the world, exploring the timeless legends that shaped civilizations and defined humanity's destiny. And today's story marks the beginning of a new age, the Aeneid, the journey to a new world. When the proud city of Troy fell in flames, and the cries of heroes faded into the night, one man refused to surrender to despair. His name was Aeneas, a prince of Troy, chosen by fate to carry the spirit of his fallen people beyond the ashes. Guided by the will of the gods, Aeneas would embark on a perilous voyage across raging seas, through forbidden lands, and into the heart of prophecy itself. He would face storms sent by jealous deities, battles against monsters and men, and the temptations of love that could shatter his mission. From the ashes of Troy to the birth of Rome, his journey would forge the foundation of an empire destined to last forever. This is the story of destiny and devotion, of sacrifice and rebirth, of the man who turned ruin into legend. This is the Aeneid, the journey to a new world. Welcome back to my channel. This channel specializes in writing about epic tales and myths from around the world. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help me out. Today, we will dive into a story titled The Aeneid, the journey to a new world. From the fall of Troy to the birth of Rome, here is the detailed content. Chapter 1. The Fall of Troy. The night the city of Troy fell, the air was heavy with smoke and sorrow. Once a jewel of golden walls and marble towers, the city now burned like a funeral pyre for an entire civilization. Flames devoured temples and palaces alike, painting the heavens red. Screams echoed through the streets, mingling with the clash of steel and the crackling roar of fire. Troy, the immortal city, was dying. Among the chaos moved Aeneas, prince of Troy and son of Anchises and Venus, the goddess of love. His armor was battered, his sword bloodied, yet his spirit did not break. As Greek warriors flooded the city through the gaping wound left by the wooden horse, Aeneas fought with fury, born of desperation. Every street he turned down revealed another horror: friends slain, homes burning, gods' statues shattered on the ground, as if Olympus itself had turned away. He lifted his eyes to the palace of King Priam, its high gates besieged. From afar, Aeneas saw Pyrrhus, the son of Achilles, cutting down the old king as if the blood of heroes were nothing but dust. The sight burned through him like fire. He roared in anguish and would have rushed to avenge his king, but the voice of the divine stayed his hand. Through the chaos, a sudden light cut through the smoke. The goddess Venus, his mother, appeared before him, her form radiant even amidst destruction. Her voice was calm, but it trembled with sorrow. "My son," she said, "this is not your battle to win. Troy's fate is sealed. You must live, for destiny has another purpose for you. The gods decree that you must carry your people to a new land, far across the sea. There, a new city will rise, greater than this one ever was." Aeneas, torn between rage and duty, bowed his head. "How can I abandon my home while it burns?" he cried. "You will not abandon it," Venus answered. "You will preserve it, in memory, in blood, in destiny. Go now, take your father, your son, and the sacred flame of Troy. The will of Jupiter guides you." The goddess vanished, leaving behind a faint glow that flickered through the smoke like a star. Aeneas turned, and purpose flooded his heart once more. He rushed to his father's house, calling for Anchises. The old man refused at first, saying, "Better to die with Troy than live as an exile." But Aeneas fell to his knees and pleaded, reminding him of the god's command. Then a miracle, a tongue of fire, appeared upon the head of Aeneas, his young son, yet it did not burn him. At that moment, a thunder rolled through the heavens, and a blazing star shot across the sky. Anchises looked up, eyes wide, and whispered, "It is the sign of Jupiter. The gods will it. We must go." Aeneas lifted his father upon his shoulders, took his son's hand, and gathered those few Trojans who still lived, their faces lit by the burning city behind them. Among them was Creosa, Aeneas's beloved wife, her eyes filled with both fear and courage. Together they fled through the narrow alleys of Troy, seeking the shadows to escape the slaughter. But fate is cruel even to those chosen by the gods. In the chaos, Creosa was lost. Aeneas, realizing she was gone, turned back into the inferno, calling her name. He searched among the ruins, through blood and ash, until at last her spirit appeared before him, calm and glowing with unearthly light. "Do not grieve, my love," she said softly. "My destiny ends here, but yours continues. The gods have ordained you to sail to a new land, where a kingdom will rise from your bloodline. Go guard our son, and remember me not with tears, but with pride." Aeneas reached for her, but she vanished like mist, leaving only her final words echoing in the smoke. "Seek the land the gods have promised. There you will find peace." Heartbroken, Aeneas returned to his people, his face streaked with ash and tears. Behind them, the walls of Troy crumbled. The once great towers fell in thunderous ruin, their stones glowing like molten stars as they collapsed into the earth. The night sky burned red, and from afar, the Greeks' shouts rose like a storm victor's over a fallen world. As dawn broke, the surviving Trojans gathered at the edge of the sea. The horizon glowed faintly, and the smoke of their homeland drifted behind them like a black veil. Aeneas turned one last time to look upon Troitha, city of his ancestors, the cradle of his memories, and vowed aloud, "O Troy, sacred home of heroes, I swear by the gods and by your ashes that your spirit shall live again. From your ruins shall rise a new city, and through me your name shall never die." With those words, he raised the sacred flame, rescued from the altar of Vesta, and placed it upon the prow of their ship. The wind stirred, as if stirred by divine breath, and their sails filled. Slowly, the ships of the exiled Trojans drifted away from the burning shore. Behind them, Troy sank into silence. Before them, the vast unknown awaited storms, islands, prophecies, and the will of the gods. Thus began the voyage of Aeneas, son of Troy, chosen of the gods, and founder of destiny. The fall of one world had given birth to another. And so, beneath a sky still streaked with the ashes of the past, the journey to a new world began. Chapter 2. The Storm and the Goddess. The dawn after Troy's fall was gray and bitter. Aeneas stood upon the deck of his ship, gazing back at the faint smoke that still rose from the ruins of his homeland. Behind him, the exiled Trojans rode in silence, their faces pale with exhaustion and grief. The sea was calm, almost mournful, as though even Neptune pitied the broken sons of Troy. They sailed under a heavy sky, guided only by omens and the faint whispers of prophecy. Their destination was unknown. Somewhere across the endless waters lay the land promised by the gods. Aeneas's heart was filled with duty, but within it also burned sorrow, fear, and a longing he could not quiet. He had lost his home, his wife, his king, and yet the gods demanded he continue. But in the halls of Olympus, far above the mortal sea, divine eyes watched their journey with anger. From her throne of peacock feathers, the goddess Juno, queen of heaven and wife of Jupiter, gazed down upon the Trojan fleet with hatred smoldering in her heart. For she had not forgotten the ancient grudge, the judgment of Paris, who had chosen Venus as the fairest of goddesses. Venus, mother of Aeneas. From that insult, Juno's wrath had never cooled, and now she foresaw that from these Trojans would rise a race destined to destroy her beloved city of Carthage. The Roman sons of Aeneas would one day conquer the world and humble her chosen people. Her voice thundered in the marble halls. Am I the queen of gods, to watch helpless while this Trojan exile defies my will? Will he sail unchallenged to the shores the fates decree? No. If Jupiter himself forbids me to destroy him, I shall at least delay his destiny. Let him suffer, tossed and broken, until he curses the very stars that guide him. With eyes blazing, Juno descended from Olympus and soared to the stormy caverns of Aeolus, the god of the winds. There, in a cavern vast as a mountain, the winds raged behind iron gates, howling tempests, bound by divine command. Aeolus himself sat upon a throne of basalt, holding the chains that restrained them. Juno approached him with cunning sweetness, her voice like thunder wrapped in silk. O mighty Aeolus, keeper of the storm, the gods have granted you dominion over the winds. I ask but one favor. The fleet of Troy sails the western seas, scatter them, sink their ships, and drown the seed of that cursed race before it takes root. Do this, and I shall reward you with the fairest of my nymphs, Deiopea, to be your queen forever. Aeolus rose, his eyes gleaming with ambition. A goddess's wish is my command, he said. Then, with his mighty spear, he struck the mountain's flank. The iron gates burst open and the winds roared forth like unleashed beasts. In an instant, the sky blackened. The calm sea exploded into chaos. Waves rose like mountains, crashing upon the helpless ships. Thunder split the heavens. Lightning revealed faces pale with terror, oars snapping, sails torn to ribbons. Aeneas gripped the helm, shouting orders above the wind. Hold fast, steady the lines, pray to the gods. But his voice was swallowed by the storm. His ship pitched violently. Men were flung into the sea like leaves before a gale. Father Jupiter, Aeneas cried into the tempest, if your will decrees my death, then let me die upon the shores of Troy, not here in this endless sea. But his plea went unheard until, in the depths below, Neptune, lord of the sea, felt the storm's fury shaking his realm. Angered that his waters were disturbed without his consent, he rose from his coral palace, towering above the waves. Who dares defile my domain? He roared, his voice echoing through the ocean's heart. He saw the chaos and understood. Ah, Juno's wrath, again. With a wave of his trident, he commanded silence. The winds cowered and fell still before him. He turned to the waves and said, be calm. Instantly, the sea obeyed. The dark clouds broke apart, and sunlight spilled once more upon the trembling survivors. The Trojans, drenched and broken, drifted upon the waves until they saw land, a rugged shore fringed with forest. With what strength remained, they rowed toward it, grounding their ships upon the sand. Exhausted men collapsed upon the beach, kissing the earth they feared they would never see again. Aeneas stood upon the shore, his armor rusted with salt, his heart heavy yet unbroken. His friend Aeneas approached and said, "We are alive, but where has the storm cast us?" Aeneas gazed at the unfamiliar coastline. "Wherever the gods have led us, we must trust that it is the path of fate," he answered. As the survivors gathered wood to dry their limbs and relight the sacred flame of Troy, Aeneas climbed a nearby cliff. From its height, he looked out across the vast sea. No ships in sight, many must have perished. His heart ached, yet his resolve hardened. He lifted his face to the sky and whispered, "O gods, if I am indeed your chosen, then grant me a sign. Show me that this suffering has meaning." In that moment, from behind the drifting clouds, a shaft of golden light pierced the heavens, touching the sea. And through that radiance came the soft, familiar presence of Venus, invisible to mortal eyes, whispering in his heart, "Courage, my son. The storm was but a trial. A new destiny awaits you, not far from here. Follow your heart, it will lead you to your fate." And as the sun broke fully over the horizon, its light revealed the distant glimmer of city walls beyond the forest. The Trojans had reached the shores of Carthage. They did not yet know that love and doom awaited them there. Chapter 3. The Queen of Carthage. The dawn over Carthage burned gold and crimson. From the hills that crowned the new city, towers and half-built walls gleamed under the rising sun. The air was filled with the ring of hammers and the shouts of builders, the heartbeat of a civilization being born. At the heart of it all stood Queen Dido, daughter of Tyre, widow of Sichaeus, and ruler by her own strength. Her people adored her, for she had led them from exile and turned wilderness into empire. Her eyes, sharp as polished amber, saw everything: the growing city, the bustling port, the ships that came and went from the western sea. But beneath her regal calm, a shadow remained, the wound of love lost, a heart once betrayed and sealed by grief. Far out on the coast, the exiled Trojans, weary from their storm-tossed voyage, awoke to the scent of strange flowers and the murmur of distant voices. Aeneas and his companion Aeneas gazed toward the distant city rising beyond the forest. "Is this where fate has brought us?" Aeneas asked. Aeneas nodded. "Perhaps. Let us go and see who rules this shore, whether they be friend or foe." Before they departed, the goddess Venus descended unseen, cloaked in a mortal guise, that of a Tyrian huntress. Her bow gleamed across her shoulder, and her feet barely touched the earth as she stepped from the trees. Aeneas hailed her. "Maiden, tell us, what land is this? Who are its people?" The huntress smiled knowingly. "This is the kingdom of Carthage," she said, "ruled by Queen Dido, a woman as noble as she is wise. She fled her home in Tyre after her husband's murder, carrying with her those loyal to her cause. By cunning and courage, she founded this city upon these shores. You may find welcome here, strangers, if you come in peace." Then she added softly, her eyes shimmering with something beyond mortal warmth, "Take heart, my son. The storm has not destroyed your destiny." And before Aeneas could question her further, a mist rose around her, and when it faded, she was gone. Only the faint scent of divine roses lingered in the air. "Did you see her eyes?" Aeneas whispered. "It was, yes," Aeneas said, a faint tremor in his voice. "My mother." With hearts uplifted, they made their way toward Carthage. As they approached the city gates, Venus, still watching, unseen, called upon her power to cloak them in a veil of shimmering mist. Thus hidden from mortal sight, they entered the bustling streets unnoticed. What Aeneas saw filled him with awe. Mighty walls rising from the dust, temples to the gods, markets teeming with merchants from every shore. Carthage was alive, proud, and strong. So swiftly do they build, he whispered, a people of great destiny, drawn by the sound of music and voices. He followed the crowd to a vast hall of marble and gold, the new palace of Dido. There, the queen sat upon her throne, surrounded by nobles and priests. Her bearing was both regal and kind. Her eyes, though steady, carried the weight of remembered sorrow. She spoke to her council. Our city grows, yet dangers remain. We must secure peace with our neighbors, trade with our allies, and watch the seas for strangers who may bring either blessing or peril. At that moment, the mist that hid Aeneas and Aeneas dissolved like morning dew. Gasps filled the hall as the figures of two foreign warriors appeared suddenly before the throne, tall, weathered, their armor scarred by the sea. Aeneas bowed deeply. "O Queen," he said, "we mean no harm. We are Trojans, survivors of our city's fall, cast out by war and storm. We seek only a place to rest and rebuild. If you grant us refuge, we will honor your name forever." Dido rose, her gaze softening as she beheld the hero. "Trojans," she said slowly, "we have heard tales of your city's fall, a tragedy that moved even the gods. You are welcome here, Aeneas. Carthage offers not only safety, but friendship. We have known exile too, and we honor courage in the face of fate." Then she stepped down from her throne and took his hand. "Come, you and your men shall feast tonight beneath my roof." That evening, the palace blazed with torches and songs. The air was rich with the scent of wine and roasted meats. Dido, radiant in gold and crimson, sat beside Aeneas, listening intently as he recounted his long journey, the burning of Troy, the death of Priam, the loss of his wife Creusa, and the storm that cast them upon her shores. As he spoke, her heart began to stir. Each word drew her closer to the man beside her, his grief, his nobility, his steadfast purpose. It was as if the gods themselves whispered in her ear, rekindling a flame she had sworn would never burn again. Meanwhile, above the mortal feast, Venus watched from the heavens, her heart both proud and wary, for she saw what was to come, love blooming where destiny demanded sacrifice. To ensure her son's safety, she turned to Cupid, her winged child, and said, "Go, my son, take the form of young Ascanius, Aeneas's boy. Sit upon the queen's lap and breathe into her heart the spark of love. Let her cherish him, and through him protect your brother." And so Cupid descended in disguise, charming all who beheld him. He climbed upon Dido's lap, his innocent smile disarming her sorrow. But as he rested his hand upon her chest, divine fire entered her veins. Her pulse quickened, her soul awakened. Dido's eyes turned to Aeneas, no longer as a queen to a guest, but as a woman to a man chosen by fate. That night, when the music faded and the hall grew silent, she lay awake beneath the moonlight, her thoughts ablaze. "Is this the will of the gods?" she whispered, "or a new beginning born from ruin?" Outside, the stars shimmered like distant embers, silent witnesses to a love that would soon defy heaven itself. Chapter 4: Love and the Gods' Decree. The days that followed were bathed in golden peace. The Trojans, once weary wanderers, now walked freely through the marble streets of Carthage. They helped raise walls, repair ships, and share tales of distant lands with the curious Carthaginians. The city thrived, and within its heart, two souls began to intertwine. Queen Dido found herself drawn ever closer to the Trojan prince. She invited him to her council, her feasts, her gardens. At dawn, she would stand upon the high balcony of her palace, gazing toward the harbor where his ships rested. And when he approached, her eyes would brighten with a light no crown could command. Aeneas, too, felt the pull. Her strength, her wisdom, her compassion, all mirrored the qualities he admired most. With her, he found a peace that had eluded him since Troy's burning. The ghosts of his past grew quiet, replaced by the warmth of her smile. But above them, the heavens watched. On the heights of Olympus, Jupiter, king of gods, sat upon his throne of storm clouds, his gaze fixed upon the mortal world. At his side stood Mercury, swift messenger and guide of souls. Jupiter spoke. My will was clear. Aeneas must sail west to Italy, there to found the race destined to rule the earth. Yet he lingers in Carthage, lost to love and luxury. Go, Mercury, and remind him of his fate. Meanwhile, far below, Dido and Aeneas hunted together through the wooded hills beyond the city. The morning mist clung to the trees as the thunder of hooves echoed among the cliffs. A sudden storm broke overhead, rain pouring in silver sheets. They sought shelter in a cavern where the fire of heaven lit the sky like divine fire. There, in that sacred hollow, fate bound them together. The storm became their witness, the gods their silent audience. Though no priest spoke and no vows were made, Dido believed their union holy, that they were husband and wife in the eyes of heaven and earth. From that day, she no longer called Aeneas guest, but lord, and together they ruled Carthage as if it were a new Troy reborn. But in Olympus, Juno smiled coldly. So, Venus, she said, you have won your son a queen, and perhaps delayed his destiny forever. If he stays in Carthage, the Romans shall never rise. How fitting that love should chain him where war could not. Venus frowned, sensing the trap but unable to unravel it. Love may delay him, she murmured, but fate cannot be denied. Yet, on earth, the spell deepened. Dido walked the palace halls with eyes full of fire and longing. She no longer presided over her people's councils. Her ships lay idle. Her builders worked without command. Her sister Anna, seeing her unrest, spoke gently. Sister, why do you hide your heart? The gods have sent this hero to us. Perhaps he is the one to heal your sorrow. Why resist what heaven decrees? But Dido, though she smiled, felt the whisper of dread behind her joy. I swore never to love again, she said, and yet I burn. If this be the gods' doing, then may they have mercy. In the shadows of the same night, Mercury descended. Cloaked in golden light, he found Aeneas sleeping in the quiet of the palace. The god touched his shoulder, and a vision flared in the hero's mind. Stormy seas, distant shores, and the ghostly figure of his father, Anchises, calling from the underworld. Son of Troy, Mercury's voice echoed like thunder. Why linger in a foreign queen's embrace? The fates call you to Italy, to your duty, to your destiny. You are not born for ease or pleasure, but for empire and eternity. Delay no longer, or you shall lose both heaven's favor and your name. Aeneas awoke, his heart pounding. The fire of divine purpose burned once more within him. He looked upon the sleeping Dido beside him and felt his soul torn in two, between love and duty, between heart and fate. At dawn, he walked to the shore, where his men worked upon the ships. "We sail for Italy," he said. His voice was steady, though his hands trembled. Aeneas looked at him in silence, understanding too well the pain that hid behind command. But word of their preparations spread swiftly through the city. And when Dido heard, she rushed to the harbor, her eyes wild with disbelief. She found Aeneas standing upon the sand, watching the waves. The wind tugged at his cloak. The ships stood ready. "You would leave me," she cried. "After all we have shared. Was it nothing? Then the storm, the vows, the love, the gods themselves witnessed. Have I been deceived, as I was once before?" Aeneas turned to her, his face shadowed by grief. "Dido, my heart is not my own. The gods command, I must obey. I never sought to hurt you, but my destiny lies beyond these shores. If I could stay, I would, but Italy awaits. My son, my people, my fate, all call me onward." Her voice broke into fury. "Fate, duty, are those your gods' cruel names for betrayal?" She pointed toward the sea. "Go then, son of Troy. Seek your destined kingdom, but may the heavens watch and curse your voyage as I curse your name." Then she fled, leaving Aeneas to the silence of the waves. That night, as the Trojans readied their ships beneath the stars, Dido stood upon her palace tower. Her heart was a battlefield of love and rage. In the distance, the torches of the departing fleet flickered upon the dark sea. "He will go," she whispered, "and I shall follow, though not in life." Chapter 5: The Fire of Carthage. The night was heavy with silence. Not the calm of peace, but the stillness that comes before a storm of the soul. In the great palace of Carthage, Queen Dido stood alone beside the dying embers of her hearth, her eyes fixed on the flames that mirrored her heart, a heart torn open, burning with love, betrayal, and despair. Outside, the city slept. The harbor lay dark, save for the faint glow of the Trojan ships rocking against the tide, their sails half raised, ready for the morning wind. Each flicker of torchlight upon the water struck Dido's chest like a dagger. She could not sleep. Her thoughts circled endlessly. The warmth of Aeneas's voice, the strength of his arms, the promises unspoken yet deeply felt. Had it all been a dream? Had the gods merely used her to test a mortal's resolve? Her sister Anna, hearing her restless steps, entered softly. "Sister, your eyes have not closed for days. Speak to me. What torment grips you?" Dido turned, her face pale but her eyes bright with feverish fire. "Anna, he is leaving. Even now, his men prepare their ships. I begged him to stay, but he speaks only of fate, of some distant kingdom written in the stars. Tell me, what god is so cruel that it steals love from the very hands of those who need it most?" Anna tried to calm her. "Perhaps he will return once his duty is done. You are a queen, beloved by your people. Do not destroy yourself for one man's destiny." But Dido's voice broke. He was not just a man. He was the fire that thawed the ice within me. Since the death of Sychaeus, my heart was a tomb, and now, for one brief moment, it lived again, only to be buried twice. She fell to her knees before the altar of Juno, goddess of marriage, and cried out, "Great Queen of Heaven, witness my misery. I kept faith with your sanctity, and now I am mocked by the very man I took as husband beneath your storm. Let the gods of vengeance hear me if he must go. Then let him feel my pain in every step he takes toward his shining destiny." The night deepened. Outside, the wind began to stir. Meanwhile, Down by the shore, Aeneas stood by the water's edge. His men worked in silence, hoisting sails and preparing the fleet to depart before dawn. Yet his heart was heavy. He watched the flickering torches of the city and whispered to himself, if only there were no gods, no fates, no prophecies, only her. But the will of heaven binds me tighter than chains. He turned away, trying not to imagine her eyes. In the palace above, Dido made her final choice. She ordered a great pyre to be built in the courtyard, under the pretense of burning the gifts Aeneas had left behind. Golden armor, swords, garments, and the very bed they had shared, all piled high beneath the moon. Let these tokens of betrayal turn to ash, she said, her voice calm, though her hands trembled, so that no trace of him remains. But within her heart, she had already chosen a darker offering. When the dawn came, the Trojans set sail. Their oars struck the water in solemn rhythm. The wind caught their sails. Aeneas stood at the prow, his gaze fixed on the horizon, refusing to look back, though every heartbeat begged him to. Upon the walls of Carthage, Dido watched them go. The ships grew smaller, their white sails fading into the blue distance. Then, suddenly, she could bear it no longer. Her cry echoed across the harbor like thunder breaking through heaven. Aeneas, you thief of honor. May the sea you cross turn against you. May your descendants and mine be enemies forever. From my ashes shall rise eternal hatred between Carthage and Rome. Her attendants tried to reach her, but she fled from them up the steps of the pyre that towered like a burning mountain. She looked once more to the sea and saw his ship vanish beyond the horizon. Her hand trembled as she drew the sword he had left behind. The blade gleamed cruelly in the rising sun. This was once his gift, she whispered. Now let it end what his love began. She pressed it to her heart and fell upon it. Flames leaped skyward, devouring the pyre and her body in one searing blaze. The smoke rose thick and black, curling into the heavens, a signal of vengeance and sorrow that even the gods could not ignore. Far out at sea, Aeneas felt a shudder in the wind. He turned, sensing something beyond mortal sight, a heat that burned the horizon behind him. Do you feel it? Aeneas asked. The air grows strange. Aeneas said nothing. His soul knew what his lips could not speak. The goddess Venus whispered faintly in his heart. It is done. She is gone. He closed his eyes, pain and guilt warring with destiny. Then may her memory live forever, he murmured, for I will carry it with me to the world I am sworn to build. And so, as the flames of Carthage rose behind him, the hero of Troy sailed onward, toward Italy, toward empire, and toward a fate stained forever by the ashes of a queen's broken heart. Chapter 6. The Underworld. The sea carried Aeneas onward, far from the smoking ruins of Carthage, but no wind could cleanse the ache within him. Even as the waves glittered beneath the sun, the memory of Dido's eyes haunted his waking dreams. Love had become loss, and loss, a wound he would bear until the end of his days. Weeks passed. The Trojans landed upon the shores of Cumae, in the land of Italy, the long-promised soil of their destiny. The cliffs rose high and ancient above the surf, and deep within them, hidden by wild forests, lay the temple of the Sibyl, the prophetess, who spoke for the god Apollo. Aeneas climbed the steep path with solemn steps, bearing gifts of gold and olive. His heart was heavy, but his purpose burned clear, to seek guidance for what lay ahead, and to speak once more with the spirit of his father, Anchises, whose shade called to him in his dreams. The Sibyl awaited him within a cavern vast as a cathedral. Shadows writhed upon its walls. A strange wind murmured from unseen depths. Her eyes blazed with divine fire as she spoke. Son of Troy, bearer of fate, you seek to descend into the land of the dead. But no mortal may tread that path unpurified. First, you must pluck the golden bow, sacred to Proserpina, queen of the Underworld. Only with it shall you pass safely among the shades. Aeneas bowed. Tell me where it lies, and I shall find it. She lifted a trembling hand toward the dark forest. It grows not by chance. It reveals itself only to the one the gods have chosen. With prayer in his heart, Aeneas ventured into the woods. The air shimmered strangely, and soon he saw it, a branch of living gold gleaming among the shadows. As he broke it free, the forest sighed, as though recognizing his destiny. When he returned, the Sibyl nodded. The gate now opens. Together, they walked into the mouth of the earth, a tunnel, vast and breathing, its walls alive with whispers. Darkness thickened around them, and the air grew cold as the tomb. The path descended steeply, winding through realms of shadow and sorrow. There lay the souls of the newly dead, crowding the banks of the black river Acheron, pleading for passage. The ferryman, Charon, with eyes like burning coals, guarded his boat with iron silence. At first, he barred their way. Living men are forbidden here, he growled. But when Aeneas raised the golden bow, its radiance filled the gloom like sunlight. Charon bowed his head and allowed them aboard. They crossed the dark waters, surrounded by moaning shades. On the far bank stood Cerberus, the monstrous hound of Hades, his 3 heads snarling with hunger. The Sibyl cast him a cake laced with honey and poppy. He devoured it greedily, and the travelers passed unharmed. Deeper they went through the fields of mourning, where the souls of the betrayed and broken lingered in eternal sorrow. Aeneas walked quietly, until a voice he knew all too well called his name. Aeneas. He turned, and there she was, Dido, pale as moonlight, her eyes no longer burning with love, but cold as stone. Aeneas's breath caught in his throat. Dido, I never meant to hurt you. By the stars above. Without a word, she turned away, walking into the mists beside the spirit of her first husband. Aeneas reached out, but his hand passed through air. He bowed his head in silence. Forgive me, he whispered, though he knew she could not. The Sibyl touched his arm. Do not linger among the dead. Your path leads onward. At last, they reached the gates of Elysium, the blessed fields where heroes and the righteous dwell. The air grew bright. The scent of flowers replaced the stench of death. Here, laughter echoed and sunlight streamed through golden groves. And there, upon a green hill, stood Anchises, radiant and young, no longer bowed by age. Aeneas ran to him, tears shining in his eyes. Father. Anchises embraced him. My son, you have endured much to reach me. Your trials are not yet over, but the gods have favored you. Come, behold the destiny you are meant to forge. He led Aeneas to a high ridge overlooking a vast plain filled with countless spirits. These, said Anchises, are the souls of your descendants, waiting to be born. Here is Romulus, who shall found Rome. Here, Caesar, who will rule the world. And beyond him, the endless line of kings and heroes who shall bear your name across ages yet to come. Aeneas gazed in awe. The light of destiny shone before him, glory beyond measure, but built upon blood and sacrifice. Is this the price of empire? He asked softly. Anchises placed a hand upon his shoulder. All greatness is born from pain, my son. You will suffer, and you will conquer. Your duty is not to happiness, but to eternity." Aeneas bowed his head. "Then I accepted." Anchises smiled sadly. "Remember me, and go forth. The world awaits the dawn of Rome." The Sibyl touched his hand, and the light began to fade. The vision dissolved, the warmth vanished. Once more he stood upon the dark path of the living, the gates of Hades closing behind him. When he emerged into the sunlight, Aeneas fell to his knees. The sky above seemed brighter, the air cleaner, as if life itself had been reborn within him. He rose and turned toward his men. "Now we know our path. Italy awaits. Rome awaits. The will of the gods shall be done." And with that, the Trojans raised their sails once more, carrying with them not only the burden of sorrow, but the flame of destiny that no storm, no god, and no death could extinguish. Chapter 7. The shores of Latium. When the dark veil of the underworld lifted from Aeneas's heart, the sea once again called him onward. The winds blew softly from the west, guiding the Trojan fleet toward the promise of destiny, the land of Latium, where the roots of Rome would one day grow. For many days they sailed through calm waters, their ships gliding like silver across the waves. The men sang ancient songs of Troy, of fathers lost and futures uncertain. Yet beneath their voices ran a current of hope, the kind that only the chosen can feel, that sense of moving toward something larger than themselves. At dawn one morning, a cry went up from the masthead. "Land, land, ahead." Aeneas stepped forward. Before him stretched a tranquil shore, crowned by green hills, olive groves, and golden meadows. The air shimmered with the scent of cedar and myrtle. A gentle river wound its way into the heart of the land, the Tiber. The Sibyl's words echoed in his mind. "Here lies your destined home." Aeneas knelt upon the sand and pressed his palm to the earth. At last, he whispered, "The soil of promise." They built an altar of stones and made offering to the gods, to Jupiter, to Apollo, and to their household spirits. Then, as was custom, Aeneas sent envoys to seek peace with the people of the land. Latium was ruled by King Latinus, an aged ruler of noble heart, descendant of Saturn himself. His palace stood among hills crowned with laurel and vine. When the Trojans' envoys arrived bearing gifts and olive branches, Latinus listened kindly. The king had long been troubled by omens. Prophets had told him that his daughter Lavinia was fated to wed a foreign hero, and that from their blood would rise a race destined to rule the world. When Aeneas himself came to the palace, tall and radiant as a god, Latinus felt the stirrings of destiny. "Welcome, son of Troy," the king said. "Your name is known even in our lands. The gods have clearly guided you here. Take peace, and take my daughter's hand, for I believe you are the one foretold by fate." Aeneas bowed deeply. "You honor me, great king. May our peoples become one, Troy reborn upon Italian soil." But not all hearts welcomed this union. Among Latinus's allies was Turnus, prince of the Rutulians, proud and fierce, who had long been promised Lavinia's hand. When he heard that a foreigner had taken his place, anger burned in his veins like molten iron. "A stranger steals my bride and dares to plant his foreign gods upon our soil," he thundered. "Then let the gods decide whose destiny prevails, his or mine." Turnus gathered his warriors, men clad in bronze and crimson, and sent word to every tribe of Latium. War drums began to echo through the hills. Meanwhile, in the depths of the heavens, the goddess Juno still watched in fury. She had never forgiven Troy, nor Aeneas, whose fate was to found a city that would one day destroy her beloved Carthage. Seeing Turnus's rage, she smiled coldly. "Yes," she whispered, "let this mortal's wrath be my weapon. If fate decrees Aeneas shall found Rome, then let his path be paved with blood." She summoned Alecto, one of the Furies, a spirit of chaos and vengeance. With serpent hair writhing and eyes that burned like poison, Alecto descended upon Latium. First, she slithered into the heart of Queen Amata, Latinus's wife, whispering lies and venom. "Do you not see how this foreigner would take your daughter from her people? Will you stand idle while a stranger steals your child?" The queen's mind darkened. Soon she raged through the halls, calling the women of Latium to arms. Next, the Fury flew to Turnus's chambers as he slept. She coiled a serpent into his heart, filling his dreams with visions of betrayal and fire. He awoke, trembling, his fury doubled. "Enough words," he roared. "Let steel speak." And so, before Latinus could stop them, Turnus's army gathered Rutulians, Volscians, and bold men from every corner of the land. The plains of Latium rang with the tramp of feet and the clatter of shields. When word reached Aeneas, he stood silent by the riverbank, watching the smoke of distant fires rise into the sky. He had hoped for peace, but the gods had written war into his destiny. He turned to his men. "We came seeking a new home, not conquest. But if the sword must decide our fate, then let it be drawn for justice, not pride. Stand with me, sons of Troy, for we fight not for glory, but for the future." The Trojans cheered. Spears glittered in the sun. The river Tiber gleamed gold beneath the rising dawn. As Aeneas prayed for strength, a sign appeared above the water. A great white sow, with 30 piglets at her side, resting beneath an oak tree. It was the very omen his father Anchises had foretold, the symbol of a city to be founded after 30 years, the city that would bear his lineage forever. "The gods are with us," Aeneas said softly. "Our path leads through battle to peace, through death to empire." And so began the first war for Rome, the clash of fated men beneath the watchful eyes of immortal gods, where love, vengeance, and destiny would intertwine until the dawn of an eternal empire. Chapter 8. The War of Latium. The dawn broke over the fields of Latium with the color of blood. Smoke curled from distant villages as warriors assembled beneath their banners, men from every tribe and valley, their shields flashing beneath the rising sun. The war that would shape the destiny of Rome had begun. From his camp by the river, Aeneas watched the armies gathering across the plain. He stood silent, his bronze armor glinting faintly, his eyes cold and resolute. He had not come to Italy for conquest, yet fate had drawn him into this storm. "So it is written," he murmured. "If the gods decree that peace be forged in fire, then fire it shall be." But before he could march, Aeneas sought allies among the native peoples who opposed Turnus's tyranny. Guided by omens, he journeyed up the Tiber River to the ancient city of Pallanteum, ruled by King Evander, a wise and noble leader descended from the hero Arcadian line. When Aeneas arrived, Evander greeted him as an equal. "I know your name, son of Anchises," the old king said. "Troy's fall was mourned even in Arcadia. If fate has brought you here, then perhaps the gods mean for us to stand together." That night, under the starlit sky, they made a sacred pact. Evander promised his warriors to Aeneas, and in return, Aeneas vowed to protect his people and honor his gods. Evander's son, Pallas, a youth of radiant courage, stood beside Aeneas with admiration blazing in his eyes. "Let me ride with you," he begged. "Let me prove myself in battle." Aeneas clasped his shoulder. "Then you shall be my brother in arms at dawn." Evander led Aeneas to a hilltop overlooking a half-built shrine, the future site, he said, of Rome's greatest temple. There, they sacrificed to Hercules, the divine hero who once cleansed this land of monsters. As the flames rose, Evander spoke with reverence. "Hercules once fought evil here, and now, you too, Aeneas, must face a monster. For Turnus's rage is no less than that of any beast." The omen was clear. That very night, while Aeneas and his men prepared for battle, the goddess Venus, his divine mother, descended to him in a shimmer of golden light. In her hands, she carried a gift armor forged by Vulcan, god of fire, glowing with celestial brilliance. "My son," she said, "take this gift from the forge of the gods. Upon this shield is written the destiny of Rome, scenes of victories yet to come." Aeneas beheld the shield. Carved upon it were images of Romulus and Remus, the founding of Rome, and the triumphs of Caesar beneath the stars. He felt the weight of time itself settle upon his shoulders. "So be it," he whispered. "If this is the will of heaven, I will bear it with honor." When Aeneas returned to his camp, Turnus had already struck. The Rutulians had attacked the Trojan lines, burning ships and slaying sentries. The Trojans fought fiercely, but were outnumbered. As the first thunder rolled across the plains, Aeneas's fleet of allies arrived. Arcadian warriors, Etruscan horsemen, and sons of Troy reborn for war. Aeneas raised his shining spear. "Today," he cried, "we fight not for Troy's ashes, but for Rome's dawn. Follow me, and let the gods witness our valor." The armies clashed with the roar of a storm. Spears flew like rain. Bronze rang against bronze. The air filled with the cries of men and the music of destiny. Among the heroes of that day was Pallas, whose courage blazed brighter than fire. He led the Arcadians into the thick of the fight, driving back the Rutulians with youthful fury. But fate, cruel and patient, watched from above. Turnus saw him across the field, the son of Evander, radiant and defiant. He spurred his chariot forward, shouting, "Come then, boy. Let us see if your courage matches your lineage." Pallas met him without fear. They fought like lion and wolf, steel clashing in bursts of flame. But Turnus was stronger. The gods were against the youth, and soon his spear struck true. As Pallas fell, his eyes still burned with pride. "Tell my father, I died as a warrior should," he whispered, before the light left him. Turnus stripped the golden belt from the boy's body, a fatal act of arrogance that would seal his own doom. When word reached Aeneas, grief turned to wrath. His heart became as iron. He stormed into battle like a living tempest, scattering enemies before him. None could stand in his path. The gods themselves trembled. Jupiter watched from Olympus as Juno descended again, desperate to save her favored Turnus. "Enough," thundered Jupiter. "You cannot defy fate forever." But Juno wept. "At least let him die with honor." The king of gods nodded solemnly. "So be it." Night fell over the fields of Latium, littered with the fallen. Fires burned among the dead. Aeneas stood alone, his armor darkened with blood, his spirit hollowed by vengeance. He gazed upon Pallas's body and swore an oath beneath the silent stars. by all the gods above and below. I will not rest until Turnus lies where he lies now. The wind carried his words like a prayer or a curse across the endless fields that would one day bear the name of Rome. Chapter 9. The Wrath of Aeneas. The sun rose red over the fields of Latium, as though the sky itself bled for the fallen. Between the smoldering ruins of camps and the blackened corpses of heroes, Aeneas walked in silence, his heart a hollow temple where sorrow and rage had become one. The body of Pallas lay before him, shrouded in linen and laurel, surrounded by mourning Arcadians. Aeneas knelt beside the youth, touching the cold brow that once burned with life and courage. "You were the light of this war," he whispered, "the hope of your father and the promise of peace. I swear by your blood I will not rest until justice is done." His voice trembled, but his eyes blazed like iron beneath the dawn. He ordered his men to prepare a pyre of cedar and cypress, high as the towers of Troy. Offerings of gold armor and weapons were laid beside the young hero. And when the flames rose, Aeneas lifted his hands to the heavens. "Great Jupiter, if ever I have honored your will, receive this soul among the blessed, but grant me vengeance upon Turnus. Let the gods themselves witness my wrath." The smoke carried his words upward like a black prayer. The men stood in silence as the fire consumed the last of Pallas's mortal form. The crackle of the flames was the sound of fate turning its wheel. When the ashes cooled, Aeneas turned to his captains. His voice was cold as winter steel. "No quarter," he said, "no mercy. Today we strike at the heart of the Rutulian." His warriors roared in answer, and the fields of Latium trembled beneath their march. In the city of Laurentum, Turnus stood upon the walls, his pride shaken but not broken. He wore the golden belt of Pallas like a trophy, though even he could feel its weight, heavy with guilt and prophecy. The queen, Amata, wept, torn between love for her daughter and dread for what was coming. Lavinia stood pale and silent, her face a mirror of destiny's sorrow. "Turnus," she whispered, "why must this end in ruin? Fate does not bend for pride." But Turnus turned away, his jaw hard. "I will not bow to a foreigner. I was born to rule this land." As the sun climbed high, the Trojan host appeared on the horizon, shields glittering, banners streaming, a tide of bronze and fury. Aeneas rode at their head, his new armor blazing with divine fire. When the armies clashed, the ground shook. Spears filled the sky like storm rain. Arrows fell like fireflies from the heavens. The cries of the dying mingled with the clang of swords, the music of a world being remade in blood. Aeneas moved like a storm through the chaos. None could stand before him. He struck down warriors by the dozen. Menzentius, the cruel tyrant of Etruria. Lausus, his brave son, who died defending his father. Camilla, the warrior, maiden swift as the wind, who fought until her final breath. The gods watched from Olympus, divided in silence. Jupiter weighed fate in his scales. Venus wept for her son. Juno, though still bitter, began to fear the inexorable pull of destiny. "He cannot be stopped," murmured Mercury. "Even the fates have yielded." By twilight, the rivers ran red. The Trojans had driven the Rutulians back to their stronghold. The air itself seemed heavy with sorrow and exhaustion. That night, as his warriors rested, Aeneas stood alone before the fire. His thoughts were a tempest. "So this is what the gods demand," he whispered. "Peace built on ashes. Glory purchased with the lives of the innocent. Is this my reward or my punishment? The ghost of Anchises seemed to stir in the flickering flame. My son, it said softly, your destiny is not your own. You carry the burden of a nation unborn. Rome will rise from this, and through her, mankind will know order and greatness. But every empire begins with pain. Aeneas closed his eyes. Then let my pain be enough. At dawn, a messenger came from the Rutulians. Turnus challenges you, Aeneas, single combat, to end this war. The gods shall decide between you. Aeneas nodded grimly. So be it. He called his captains. Prepare the field. Tomorrow we end this. When the sun rose once more over the plains of Latium, the two armies gathered to witness fate unfold. On one side stood Aeneas, scarred, divine, unyielding. On the other, Turnus, proud, desperate, aflame with defiance. Between them lay the ashes of Pallas, the sorrow of nations, and the silent judgment of the gods. The horns sounded, the world held its breath. And as they strode toward each other, eyes locked, destiny itself seemed to tremble. For in that moment, beneath the watching sky, the fate of Rome was about to be born. Chapter 10. The Duel of Fate. The morning of the duel dawned cold and still. Mist hung over the plains of Latium, soft and white like the breath of ghosts. The two armies stood facing each other in solemn silence. Trojans on one side, Rutulians on the other, their banners motionless in the windless air. In the center of the field stood Aeneas and Turnus, each armored in bronze and prophecy. Between them, priests built an altar of turf and stone, its fire waiting to bear witness to the oath of the gods. Aeneas's armor gleamed with divine fire, a gift from the forge of Vulcan. Upon his shield shone the image of Rome, yet unborn, the future stretching beyond all mortal sight. Turnus stood proud, his eyes hard as obsidian, the golden belt of Pallas still hanging from his waist, an omen that neither he nor fate could ignore. The king Latinus stepped forward, his voice trembling with age and sorrow. Before the gods of heaven and earth, let this duel decide the war. Let the victor claim Lavinia and the peace of Italy. Let no man break this oath. Aeneas bowed his head. So let it be. Turnus nodded curtly. May Jupiter judge us both. The offerings were burned. The priests withdrew. And then, as the smoke rose toward the heavens, the stillness shattered, the horns blared, and the champions advanced. Steel rang upon steel. Sparks burst into the morning air. The clash of their blades echoed across the fields like thunder rolling through the heavens. Turnus fought with the fury of a lion cornered. His blows fell swift and merciless, each one carrying the weight of his pride and rage. Aeneas parried with the calm of destiny itself, precise, unyielding, patient as the tide. Their armies watched in breathless silence. No god dared interfere. Even Juno, high upon Olympus, turned her face away. For a time it seemed the duel might never end. The dust rose in golden clouds around them. Blood streaked their armor. Each had wounded the other, and yet neither yielded. At last, Turnus' sword, forged long ago and not meant for God's war, shattered upon Aeneas' shield. The broken blade flew from his hand, leaving him defenseless. He stepped back, eyes wide, breath ragged. "Give me a weapon," he shouted to his men, "a sword," but none dared move. Fate had bound their hands. Aeneas raised his spear, his voice deep and steady. "The gods have spoken. Turnus. This ends now. He hurled the spear. It struck Turnus in the thigh, driving him to his knees. The earth trembled beneath the impact. Turnus fell backward, his armor clanging, his face pale with pain. He lifted his eyes to Aeneas. "I have lost," he gasped. "If mercy still lives in you, Trojan, spare me. My life has been cruel enough." Aeneas stood over him, his sword drawn. His breath came heavy, his eyes shadowed by battle and grief. For a moment, mercy flickered there, a faint reflection of the man he once was. Then he saw it, the golden belt of Pallas gleaming at Turnus's waist, the same belt he had torn from the boy he murdered. Rage flooded Aeneas's heart, drowning mercy in fire. "You wear the spoil of the innocent," he said coldly. "You defiled his honor. Shall I now let you live?" Turnus's lips trembled. He said nothing. The gods watched in silence as Aeneas lifted his blade high. "Pallas, this blow is for you." And with one stroke, he drove the sword deep into Turnus's heart. Turnus's eyes widened, then dimmed. His body fell limp upon the blood-soaked earth. The plains of Latium grew still once more, a silence so vast it seemed the whole world paused to breathe. Aeneas stood over his fallen foe, his chest heaving. Victory had come, but its taste was bitter as ash. Around him, the armies lowered their weapons. The war was over. Above the field, the clouds parted, and a ray of golden light fell upon Aeneas. It was as though the heavens themselves anointed him, not as a conqueror, but as the vessel of destiny. He looked toward the distant hills where Lavinia watched in silence. The weight of what he had done settled upon him like armor that could never be removed. "So begins Rome," he whispered, "born from the blood of brothers and built upon the tears of the gods." And as the sun rose higher, gilding the plain in light, Aeneas sheathed his sword and turned toward the horizon, toward the future that awaited him, and the empire that would one day rise from his name. Chapter 11. The birth of Rome. The war was ended, yet the land still bled. Smoke rose from the ruins of Latium, mingling with the cries of the living and the whispers of the dead. The gods had withdrawn to their thrones, and men were left to mend what divinity had shattered. Aeneas walked through the quiet aftermath, his armor heavy with dust and sorrow. The duel with Turnus had won him peace, but not rest. Each step he took echoed with the weight of those who had fallen for his destiny. At the edge of the battlefield, Queen Amata's palace loomed, its marble scorched by fire. From its gates came King Latinus, his robes torn, his eyes hollow with grief and wisdom. Beside him stood Lavinia, veiled and pale, her gaze downcast as if the burden of prophecy itself pressed upon her shoulders. Latinus approached and laid his trembling hands upon Aeneas's shoulders. "The gods have chosen," he said quietly. "Let there be no more blood. My daughter is yours, and with her the kingdom of Latium. Together you will forge what neither war nor death can undo." Aeneas bowed deeply. "So may it be. Not for me, but for those who will come after." That night, under a sky lit by stars like silent witnesses, the wedding of Aeneas and Lavinia was held. It was not a celebration of joy, but of destiny fulfilled. The Trojans and Latins joined in solemn peace, two peoples made one by the will of fate. The priests spoke the blessings of Jupiter, and the fires of the altar burned bright. Aeneas took Lavinia's hand and vowed before the gods, "From this union shall rise a nation greater than any before. Its light shall reach across the world." Its name shall never die. The years of building peace returned slowly. Under Aeneas's guidance, cities rose upon the ashes of war. He built walls, temples, and harbors. He taught the mingled tribes the laws of honor and the craft of governance. He named his people the Latins, uniting the sons of Troy with the children of Italy. Around him grew a generation of warriors and farmers, poets and priests, the first Romans in all but name. In time, Aeneas grew older. The fire of battle dimmed in his eyes, replaced by the calm light of purpose fulfilled. Yet deep within him, he knew that his journey was not yet at its end. One night, as he stood upon the banks of the Tiber, gazing at the reflection of the moon upon the water, he heard a voice carried by the wind, soft, familiar, divine. "Son of Venus," it whispered, "your task is complete. The city shall rise. Your blood shall endure. Now come, the gods await." It was the voice of his mother, Venus. Aeneas closed his eyes, and the years seemed to fall away. His armor shimmered with unearthly light. From the heavens descended a chariot of fire, drawn by winds unseen. Lavinia found him at dawn, standing still upon the riverbank, untouched by time, his face lifted toward the rising sun. Then, in a flash of golden flame, he was gone. The people searched for him, but found only his sword upon the grass. They built a shrine where he had stood, and there they worshipped him as indiges, the divine father of their race. The legacy generations passed. From Aeneas's son, Aeneas, rose the city of Alba Longa, and from its royal line, centuries later, were born Romulus and Remus, the twin founders of Rome. Thus the prophecy was fulfilled. From the blood of Troy shall come a people destined to rule the world, their empire eternal, their glory undying. The flame of Aeneas did not die. It burned through time, through kings and empires, through the rise and fall of ages. And so, upon the banks of the Tiber, where the hero vanished, the Romans built their temples and raised their banners. They remembered him not just as a warrior, but as the bridge between gods and men, the one who bore the weight of fate and gave birth to a civilization that would outlast the stars. Chapter 12. The Eternal Flame. The years turned like silent wheels upon the sky. Seasons passed, empires rose and fell, but the spirit of Aeneas endured, a whisper in the wind, a light upon the hill of destiny. His people, once scattered survivors of Troy, had become builders, dreamers, and conquerors. From the valleys of Latium to the farthest shores of the known world, their name began to carry power. Romanus, born of Troy, chosen by fate. In the heart of the newborn city, the flame of Vesta burned without ceasing. Its fire was said to have been kindled by Aeneas himself, a spark taken from the sacred hearth of Troy before its fall. As long as that fire lived, so too would the soul of Rome. The prophecy lives on generations after Aeneas. The twin sons of Mars, Romulus and Remus, were born of his divine bloodline. Their story was one of struggle and fate, mirroring their ancestors' path. Abandoned to the river, like Aeneas once was to the sea, they were saved by the wild and nurtured by destiny. When Romulus struck down his brother and founded Rome upon the 7 hills, the heavens thundered in approval and sorrow alike. The gods, watching from their thrones, saw in that act both the birth of greatness and the shadow of pride that would one day bring it low. But for now, the city thrived. Its people built walls that touched the clouds, temples that reached toward eternity, and roads that carried the name of Rome across the earth. They spoke of Aeneas not as a man, but as the Divine Father who had defied destruction to carve the path of empire. The divine vision, it is said that on the 1000th year after the fall of Troy, a flame appeared above the temple of Jupiter. The priests gathered, trembling, for within the fire they saw a vision, Aeneas, radiant in armor of gold, his eyes like molten suns. He spoke with the calm authority of the divine. What I began in tears, you shall complete in glory. Keep the flame alive, and it will light the world. Forget it, and darkness shall return. Then the vision faded, leaving behind a single burning ember that would never die. That ember became Rome's sacred fire, guarded by the Vestal Virgins, a living reminder of their eternal bond to the gods and to their Trojan ancestor. The legacy of the hero in the songs of poets and the whispers of oracles, Aeneas's name echoed. Virgil, the poet of the Augustan age, would one day capture his journey in words that would outlive marble and bronze. Arma virum ec cano, I sing of arms and the man. Through those verses, Aeneas lived again, his trials, his love, his loss, his triumph. The world would remember not just the hero who fled the ruins of Troy, but the father who gave birth to an empire, the eternal empire. As centuries passed, Rome conquered nations and ruled seas. Its legions carried the eagle across deserts, mountains, and oceans, and everywhere they went, they spoke the name of Aeneas as a symbol of divine purpose. Even when the empire waned and its stones crumbled into dust, the idea of Rome, the dream of destiny, of law, of light, never died. It lived in language, in faith, in the memory of humankind. And somewhere beyond the veil of time, the spirit of Aeneas still walked not as a ghost, but as a guardian of what he had begun. He stood upon a shore not bound by any sea, looking out across the stars. In his hands, the flame of Troy still burned, bright and eternal. As long as men dream, he whispered, as long as courage endures, the flame will never die. And with that, the wind rose, carrying the light of Aeneas into the endless sky, where it became a star. The Romans would later call it the Star of the Founder, shining forever above the city he had never lived to see, yet had always known would rise. Thus ended the journey of Aeneas, the man who turned the ashes of one world into the dawn of another. And so, from the ruins of Troy was born the light of Rome, a legacy eternal, a flame unending.